Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video, I'll be going through my Game Week 23 team selection. I'll also show you my transfer plans, my current watch list. We'll have a bit of a live tinker for game weeks ahead, and I'll also show you a wildcard draft for those of you that are on your wildcards. If you are enjoying the content here on this channel, please do remember to like, comment and subscribe. Those three things are completely free for you to do, but they help support me so very much. We're about 500 subscribers away from 10,000, so if you are new to the channel and you wouldn't mind subscribing, I would appreciate that very much. But without further ado, let's jump into today's video. So because it is a team selection video, I just wanted to give a massive shout out to the official sponsors of the team selection videos here on this channel, OneFootball. If you're new to the channel and you do not know who OneFootball are, wherever you've been, they are basically an all-in-one football app. So whatever you need for your football needs or FPL needs, whether it be transfer information, press conference updates, video highlights. As you can see, you've got table according to home and away form, different pieces of news, statistics. You've also got during the games, you've got a live ticker, live lineups, live statistics as well. So I use this on a daily basis, specifically during the games at the weekends when I can't watch all of the games, or potentially when the 3 p.m. kickoffs are there on a Saturday. I'm constantly checking the app. They've got fantastic live ticker. They've also got some community features there as well. So I personally use this on a daily basis, and therefore I'm perfectly happy to recommend it as well. So if you'd like to support the channel for free and also download the best free football app on the market, you can do so by scanning the QR code in the top left corner of the screen or by clicking the link in the description. If you do download OneFootball, as always, let me know what you think of it down below. So Game Week 22 was another tough week for me, and I've had a couple of tough weeks on the bounce now. I suppose what I am happy about with respect to my tough weeks is that I'm not dropping too far down, and even when I have a bad week, it's only slightly below the average. Of course, I say that, I'm sure Game Week 23 will be even worse now, but when I have a bad week, it's not as bad as it could potentially be, and I'm only slipping down slightly, and all I need is one good week to chuck me right back up to where I started a few weeks ago. So I'm not too disheartened, and realistically, this week came down to one decision. Did you bring in and captain Bruno Fernandes? And with decisions such as this, where it's not massively supported by the statistics, I don't think it was necessarily an obvious move to make. I don't think these are the sort of things we should beat ourselves up on. Realistically, no one expected Bruno Fernandes to outscore Ronaldo by 45 plus points. It was never likely to happen. And realistically, if you take a look at his statistics from the double game week as well, he probably didn't deserve to get the amount of returns he did. He played absolutely fantastically, but I'm not sure that necessarily, like I said, 45 points more than the likes of Ronaldo, Dennis King is really a fair representation of what you would expect from double game week. So it's one of those where don't judge the decision based on the outcome, judge it based on the decision-making process. Rangnick said in his press conference, Ronaldo is fine and expected to be available for the match. At that stage, captaining Manchester United's penalty taker, their number 9, someone that scored 800 plus career goals in a pretty good double game week, I don't think that's a bad decision. Obviously, for him to then miss out against Villa was unexpected based on Rangnick's press conference, and then for him to blank against Brentford, he didn't play particularly well, but you're not expecting that either because Brentford have been pretty poor recently. So I think generally, if you're looking at, like I said, looking at the decision-making process, captaining someone other than Bruno was absolutely fine, and deciding not to bring in Bruno was fine as well, because realistically, unless you had Salah and you went from Salah to Bruno, to get Bruno in, you probably would have had to take out the likes of Kane and Ronaldo. And for me, that just didn't warrant a -4 transfer. When Ronaldo looked like he'd be fine, Kane has a decent fixture against Leicester. That probably doesn't warrant a transfer. So if I look back to the decision-making process, I'm perfectly happy with it. Obviously, now that the outcome has happened and that Bruno has outscored Ronaldo about 45 plus points, it looks like an even worse decision. But realistically, I don't think it was as bad as it ended up being. It was just one of those massive variance swings, massive point swings. So I guess the point of that little rant is just to say, don't beat yourself up. It's one of those things. If you did captain Bruno Fernandes, brilliant job. Let me know down below what your total points was. You probably scored above 100 points. I saw a lot of 100 points totals over on Twitter, and that's fantastic if you did. But if you didn't captain Bruno, don't panic. Your time will come. There'll be a massive point swing in your favour in the near future. I guarantee it. It's the way FPL works. Outside of that, the team was pretty horrific. De Gea, Cancelo, Trent and Bowen, maybe the only saving grace there, but Bowen, Cancelo and Trent have incredibly high ownership. De Gea only getting 8 points. He was on for about 15, 16 points before Tony scored in the recent game. So De Gea could have had a massive haul there. I know FPL Focal, I'm sure most of you follow FPL Focal or Oscar over on YouTube. He captained De Gea, and I was rooting for him because obviously I had De Gea. I'm a Manchester United fan, and I want to see FPL Focal do well. Obviously, it's great to see other YouTubers have fantastic ranks. Unfortunately, De Gea did concede, but 8 points is still better than the likes of Ronaldo, so good job there with Oscar. And then outside of that, like I said, Bowen, Cancelo, Trent, high ownership, so I didn't really gain much from them. Cucurella, I was incredibly impressed with. So my free transfer this week was Livramento to Cucurella, and I'm incredibly happy I made that because I think a lot of other people will be looking to get on Cucurella now. The issue with Cucurella is he, of course, blanks in game week 24. So I probably wouldn't bring him in this week against Leicester because you've got Leicester and then a blank. But after that, I do really like the look of him. They've got a few games to be rearranged, or I think 2 games Brighton have to be rescheduled. So Cucurella looks like a brilliant option. He's a bonus points monster. He picked up a bonus point despite conceding in the first game, and then he almost picked up a bonus point despite conceding in the second game as well. So when he gets those clean sheets, he's almost definitely going to get a 7, 8, 9 pointer there. So I'm really happy that I own him for the foreseeable future. And then the rest of the team, Jota, Gray, Antonio, Ronaldo, Calvert-Lewin, all very disappointing. And it left me with, like I said, a decent week because I had Cancelo, Trent, Bowen, De Gea, and then 5 points from Cucurella. So it wasn't a terrible week, but it was a little bit uninspiring. And with double game weeks, you're so excited by it. You've got lots of doublers. And for people that had King and Dennis, that's incredibly unlucky that they didn't have their double. The likes that brought in maybe Maddison early or potentially Harry Kane for that double to then be cancelled was a massive sucker punch. So it went from being a really exciting double game week 22. I've been talking about it for so long. I'm going to free hit. It's going to be so exciting. So many doubles. To it really being very disappointing if you didn't own and captain Bruno Fernandes. If you did, you probably absolutely loving game week 22. But for those of us that didn't, it was a bit uninspiring and a bit boring, I guess, all in all. So hopefully game week 23 will be a bit more exciting. Let's now move into my team selection ahead of game week 23 and look if I have any planned transfers. Right, so swiftly moving on to game week 23. As always, I'm going to go through the way my squad currently looks. Then I'll talk about potential transfer plans. I'll show you my watch list. I'll show you what players I'm potentially looking at bringing in. We'll have a bit of a live tinker. And as I said, I'm just going to show you a wildcard draft at the end for those of you that are activating the wildcard this week, because I do think it's a pretty decent week to do so. So this is the way the team currently looks. I'm set up in a 3-4-3, as I have been for a few weeks now. I could potentially play a 3-5-2 this week, as we'll discuss in a second, but for the time being, it is a 3-4-3. My team value is slowly going up. It's nothing crazy. I know there are some people with like 107, 108 million plus, but it is decent enough so that when I play my second wildcard, my selling value is actually pretty decent as well. So team value really doesn't mean that much. It's what your selling value is, or at least selling value of the players that you are planning on selling. And my selling value is pretty decent. I've only got 0.1 million in the bank, so I don't have that much flexibility if I want to make one move, and I only have one free transfer. At the time of recording, I don't currently plan on taking any hits, but if there is a double game week, who knows what might happen. So, as you know, if you've watched my channel for a while, I've got Ramsdale and De Gea, and it is a slightly tricky decision this week. I think De Gea is much more likely to make saves, of course, because their number one Manchester United defence is pretty poor. 2, West Ham are obviously a fantastic attacking unit. So I do think that if one of these keepers between Ramsdale and De Gea is likely to get a massive haul, I do think it's more likely to be De Gea. However, I just can't see Manchester United not conceding there. And therefore, at the moment, I've gone for what I would say is probably the higher floor, because I do expect a clean sheet in this game, especially with the fact that Burnley have been absolutely battered by COVID, injuries, AFCON, etc. I expect Ramsdale to keep a clean sheet here. So I'm going for what I hope will be a 6-7 pointer from Ramsdale over what could potentially be an 11-12 pointer from De Gea. Let me know down below if you had De Gea and Ramsdale, who would you play? I think the majority of you will agree with me that Ramsdale is probably the one to play here. And then my back 3, I'm actually really happy with. And for the first time this season, I am really strongly considering captain and a defender. And as you can see at this moment in time, my captaincy and my vice captaincy are on 2 defenders. Now, if you haven't already watched my game week preview video that went live yesterday, after this, or you can pause this and go watch it now, I did record a game week preview video and we had a 20-minute discussion around captaincy, and I went through all of the individual underlying statistics, the team data as well. And I came to the conclusion, as I'm sure a lot of you will have, and if you look at the points from last week, even if you're not interested in underlying stats, Cancelo getting 11, Trent getting 10. These are 2 players that should be high up in your captaincy decision each week. Cancelo is pretty good with respect to his underlying statistics from an attacking perspective. I think it's about a 0.27 expected goal involvement, but Trent has around a 0.47 expected goal involvement. So with Trent, what you're getting is you're getting not only the potential for a clean sheet, which is pretty high with Liverpool's defence, but you're getting a player which has a better expected goal involvement, or non-penalty, I should say, than both Rafinha and Watkins. So he is a higher attacking threat than both Rafinha and Watkins. Now, a lot of that is made up through expected assists. It's not a massive amount through expected goals, but we know he does take a few long shots. He can get into the box. He takes free kicks as well. So with Trent, you've always got a potential haul there, even if he doesn't keep the clean sheet. So I'm trying to decide between the 2. It's a tricky one because I think Trent has the better attacking output and he's nailed on. Cancelo is such a small rotation risk and He doesn't have such a high attacking output, but I do think that Man City are more likely to keep the clean sheet. So it's a tricky one. At the moment, I am planning on captaining one of these two. I don't know which way I'd go. I think at the moment I'm on Cancelo just because I think the clean sheet's more likely. But the fact that Trent's so nailed, the fact that he is such a fantastic attacking threat, even without Salah and Mane in the team, he looks absolutely fantastic. So I do really like him there. Be a bit of a tricky decision. Let me know down below if you're choosing between Cancelo and Trent, who would you captain? And then the third defender in my team is Cucurella. As I said in the previous section, very, very impressed with him. I don't think Leicester away is a fantastic fixture. I'm not expecting a clean sheet. It would be nice, but he's just so attacking and great for bonus points. If he does get anything, he could be on for a massive haul. And outside of Cucurella, the only other two options I would have is Dalot against West Ham. And as I just said with the De Gea selection, I don't think Manchester United will keep a clean sheet. And then I've got Dawson against Manchester United. And however bad Manchester United are, I do expect us to grab a goal of some kind. And West Ham just don't look fantastic defensively either. So I think the backline picks itself. But I am definitely considering captaining a defender this week, which I don't normally do because I think if they lose the clean sheet, you're relying on an attacking return. But when you look at the data, that's not necessarily unlikely from those two defenders. Fairly happy with the midfield this week. It does pick itself most weeks, or at least 3 of the players do. The fourth, so I'll just go through all of those. So Jota against Crystal Palace didn't look fantastic in the absence of Mane and Salah in the last game, but I do still back him. His underlying statistics are fantastic. Probably not confident enough in Liverpool's attack in the absence of Salah and Mane to captain Jota this week, although that might change. I might change my opinion on it. But at the moment, I don't think I'm confident enough in that attack. But I'm still happy owning him, and I have no plans to sell him anytime soon. Bowen is in incredible form, looks fantastic every time he plays, looks like he could get a hat-trick every time he plays. Manchester United are a little bit shaky at the back, so I've seen a few people suggest captaining Bowen. I don't mind captaining Bowen, but for me, I think there are better fixtures to target, or even better teams to target, such as using a Manchester City attacker, or potentially a defender from, say, Cancelo or Trent as well. So I personally think there are a few better options than Bowen, but he's not a terrible option if you do really fancy targeting that Manchester United defence. And then Foden, I'm so happy that I kept Foden. I think a lot of people will be looking to buy Foden now. I do think he's the best Manchester City attacker to own if you take into account price. I think KDB's fantastic, but he's £4.1 million more than Foden. So when you take that into account, I think Foden offers the best value at his price. I think he'll play the majority of the minutes, more so in the false 9 position than on the left, but he can obviously play on the left in the absence of Grealish and Sterling. So I do really like him, and I just think that going forward over the next 6, 7, 8 game weeks, I think Foden will get quite a few points. That fourth spot is quite tricky this week. I have a very dysfunctional relationship with Gundogan. I've held him for far too long. I bought him such a long time ago. I can't even remember how long ago now. It was a really long time ago. It was a decision between Saka and Gundogan. Saka went on to score a brace and then a goal. He got like 4 or 5 goals in 5 game weeks. And I was left with Gundogan, who not only wasn't scoring, but wasn't even playing. And I've somehow kept him for this entire period. Let me know down below if you're one of the strange people like me that has kept Gundogan this long. But each week, the issue with Manchester City attackers is that when they play, you think, wow, they're playing well. They look fantastic, as they always do. All of the Manchester City attackers do. They're playing well. Pep trusts them. I'm going to keep them because Pep clearly likes them and he's in their starting 11. When they don't play, you think, oh, well, they didn't play this week. Surely they get a go next week. And then they don't play again. You go, that's 2 games in a row that they haven't played. Surely they play the next one. And that's sort of the position that I've got at with Gundogan. And I'm trying to correct my own biases here. You know, I'm quite a logical decision maker. I try and take the emotion out of it. But surely Gundogan does start soon. And I think Southampton might be a fixture that he could play. Now, I don't know whether I'm just holding... I have definitely held on to him for too long. But I don't know at what stage I just cut my ties with Gundogan and just bring in someone else. So, for example, I've got a free transfer. I could just do Gundogan to Rafinha this week. Rafinha's got Newcastle. That's an absolutely fine fixture. But I look at it and say, I treat each transfer as 4 points. Even though it's not a hit, I treat that transfer as losing 4 points. Am I confident enough that Rafinha will outscore Gundogan by 4 points? Probably not. And when I consider the fact that I've got Damari Gray on the bench as well, if I'm really not that confident in Gundogan, do I just play Damari Gray? Because he's looked fantastic recently. So at the moment, I'm currently planning on keeping and starting Gundogan. I've just got a feeling he starts against Southampton. I would not be surprised if he's benched. And if he is benched, I fully own that decision. And it is not a hindsight outcome bias decision. I will own that as a poor decision to just keep blindly trusting the fact that Gundogan will start. So I can admit that now, that if he doesn't start, I'm not going to be complaining about it. I'll accept that because I can't just continue to start Gundogan. And when he doesn't start, complain that he doesn't get any points. I could potentially start Gray ahead of him. So let me know down below. I'm sure most of you will probably suggest starting Gray. But I just think I trust the City attack more. When he plays, He looks amazing. And I don't think anyone's criticism of Gundogan is that he's not good or that he doesn't look good when he plays or his underlying statistics aren't good. It's just that Pep, for some reason, isn't playing him. He did have that niggling back injury a few weeks ago, so I don't know if it's that. But I'll stop ranting about Gundogan because I think I'm probably the only strange person that owns him in the whole FPL community. But for the time being, that's currently the midfield four. I like the fact that I've got Damari Gray first sub as a very, very strong sub if anyone misses out. He could potentially come into the starting 11 for Gundogan. Let's take a look at the 3 attackers for this week. At the time of recording, I currently have no plans to change my front 3. However, that could obviously change if there's a double game week announced. Specifically for Villa, I might end up bringing in Watkins for Antonio or Calvert-Lewin. Although long term, I think I still want Antonio and Calvert-Lewin, or at least over the next sort of 5 or 6 fixtures. If I do bring in Watkins, if there is a double game week, I'm just going to cover that just in case it happens after I finish recording this. I would probably bring Watkins in for Antonio. I know it's not a bad fixture for Antonio, but just recently he hasn't looked that fantastic anyway, and I wouldn't mind necessarily jumping off of him to get a player with fantastic fixtures and a double game week in Ollie Watkins, and he's potentially a captaincy option as well. So I think if there is that double game week announced, I would bring him in for Antonio. But other than that, I'm just not. I don't trust any of the other strikers enough to waste or use, I should say, a free transfer on any of them, or potentially take a hit if I use my transfer elsewhere. Calvert-Lewin long term, as I said, got great fixtures. He's got fixtures to be rearranged, as I discussed in the game week preview video. I don't think selling Everton assets at the moment is probably the wisest decision, and therefore I'm happy enough keeping Calvert-Lewin for the time being. I'll see how they go over the next couple of games. If they look really, really poor still, even after Rafa Benitez has gone, if they don't seem to be finding their feet, I might end up moving Calvert-Lewin on, but there just aren't that many other strikers that I want. Ronaldo will definitely be sold soon, probably in game week 24, maybe game week 25, and it'll be for Salah. So I've known for a while that that's probably my route to Salah. We discussed it in last week's team selection video. Seeing how poor Ronaldo does look recently, I just don't think he's the asset to own. And even if he looked fantastic, I still think Salah's a better FPL asset. So I'm almost happy, I guess, that Ronaldo hasn't looked that amazing, because if he'd have been in brilliant form scoring loads of goals, it would have been a tricky decision as to whether to get Salah back in, or more importantly, when to get Salah back in. But as it is now, as soon as Salah's available, whether it be 24, 25, 26, I'm going to want him back in for Ronaldo. And then Antonio, like I said, is a funny one. I don't mind keeping him for now, but if I need another striker at any point, if I want Dennis, if I want King, if I want Jimenez, if they get a great game week, whatever it may be, Antonio is probably the one that I wouldn't mind selling. So that's the front 3 for now. As I said, Ronaldo will be going very soon. I've seen people suggesting benching Ronaldo against West Ham. I wouldn't go that far. For all we know, he could still be on penalties, and he is still one of the greatest players of all time. Yes, he's dropped off slightly recently. Yes, Manchester United don't look great. I'm not benching Ronaldo. If you're going to bench Ronaldo, just sell him, I think, at this stage, because West Ham at home isn't a tricky fixture from an attacking perspective, and I do still expect Manchester United to score a couple of goals there. So that's my personal opinion on it. So that's the way the team looks. At the time of recording, I currently plan on rolling a transfer. I think when you look at the starting 11, it's pretty strong. I do have some captaincy options, although they're not fantastic, but the starting 11 is strong. I have captaincy options. I've got a very strong bench with respect to all 3 I expect to play. Maybe not Dalot, but at least Gray and Dawson. And Damari Gray as a first sub is fantastic. I've got De Gea on the bench just in case the Arsenal-Burnley game is called off. I've got most things covered at the time of recording. I don't have any other crazy news with respect to postponements or double game week. So if it stays as it is and the fixtures are all as they are, I plan on rolling a free transfer. If a double game week is announced, let me just go through the different permutations. If it is potentially a Villa double game week and a Leeds double game week, i.e. Villa and Leeds is the fixture that's added to 23, that's a possibility. I would probably bring in Rafinha for Gundogan. So I would probably sell Gundogan for Rafinha because he'd have a double game week of Villa and Newcastle, which is just too hard to pass up on. So I'd bring in Rafinha for Gundogan. And then I might leave it there, or I might potentially bring in Cash or Luka Dean for Dalot and then start them ahead of Cucurella. Cucurella would come to second sub. So I might end up taking a -4 for Rafinha and Cash or Dean if there is a Aston Villa Leeds double game week. Or, like I said, I could potentially bring in Ollie Watkins for Antonio. So it'd be one of those 3 transfers or potentially 2 of them. I doubt I would make all 3, although it is an option. I just don't fancy taking a -8 this week. So it'd be one of Cash, Dean, Rafinha, and then Ollie Watkins. If it is just a Villa double game week and the game that is rearranged into there is Burnley, so Villa and Burnley get the double game week, I'd probably just bring in Watkins for Antonio and leave it there, because I couldn't, because I don't have enough money in the bank, bring in Luka Dean or Cash for Dalot. So that's the general consensus on what I would do in the different different situations with respect to the double game weeks. I just wanted to cover that just in case it happens just after I finish uploading or recording. So that's the team. Current plan is to roll the transfer. Let's just take a full look at my entire watch list just so that you know which players I'm considering and you can compare that with your own watch list as well. So here is my current Game Week 23 watch list. As I've said for a while, starting with the defenders, I do really want Laporte in my team. Obviously, the issue I have is that I'm already on a City triple up, and therefore I'd have to sell Gundogan before I could get Laporte. We did discuss that in the Game Week preview video. I do think that double City defence will probably be the way to go alongside one of Foden or KDB in attack. But I suppose the slight concern, and it is a very, very small concern with Laporte, is that he plays very, very well in the Champions League. And in the past, Pep has saved him for and played him in the Champions League. So if City continue to do incredibly well in the Prem and they get sort of 15 points clear in the Premier League towards the back end of the season, and they go quite far in the Champions League, I wouldn't be surprised to see Laporte rested a couple more times in the Prem to save him for the Champions League. And then he'll play in the Champions League probably alongside Diaz and or Stones. So I don't know that that will definitely happen. Laporte could continue to start almost every Premier League game. And I do expect him to play a lot of games in the Prem. But if that is the case, maybe completely long-term, if you're looking across the entire remainder of the season, it might be that Diaz is the one to go for. So I still think I prefer Laporte, but I wouldn't necessarily criticise you if you wanted to go for Diaz because I think he'll probably play the same amount of games as Laporte at the moment. But if Laporte is safe for the champs, he could potentially play significantly more games in the Prem. And then you've got the two Wolves defenders on my watch list at the moment. So I've got 8 Nuri on there at the moment. Looks really, really good from an attacking perspective. Fairly cheap as well. The only concern is obviously when Marcel's back fit, is he going to compete with that spot? I do think that 8 Nuri will be the first choice left wing back. It's just how many minutes he gets. Obviously suffered with injuries earlier on in the season as well. So that's something to keep an eye on. He does look fantastic. I think if he's your 5th defender, I don't mind going for him. I think if you're going for a 4th defender from Wolves, i.e. someone that you might play quite a bit, might be first sub quite a lot, I might go for a Kilman or a Cody just for that safety of they're still cheap, but they're almost definitely going to start. Kilman's obviously quite tall, quite the goal. Well, you'd expect him to be a pretty decent goal threat, but he hasn't scored obviously that many goals in the past. But if you want to go for Kilman, I don't mind that. Cody's obviously going to start all the time. He's their captain. Been playing very, very well this season. I think realistically, when you're going for a Wolves defender, you're probably just going for someone that you hope will start and keep clean sheets. So I think if you've got the choice, I think Cody's a fairly good choice long term, and I think he's going to start all of the games for the remainder of the season. Then there's the 2 Villa wing-backs. You've got Luca Dean and you've got Cash. It's a really tricky one because Cash is, I think, the more nailed fullback. I don't think there's any competition realistically for him unless Ashley Young suddenly starts playing out there. I just think that he's going to start the remainder of all of the games this season. And then Luca Dean, I would argue when they both play, I think he'll have the higher attacking output on a few set pieces as well. We know how good he can be from an attacking perspective, but he has the higher competition with Target. And I don't expect Target to just never play again for Aston Villa. He might be played in the cup competitions. It might be that he just comes on for Luca Dean in the late games, or he might just potentially rotate with Luca Dean. We just generally don't know what's going to happen. So that does put me off slightly, but I think if I were to make the move now, I think I'd take the risk. And I think I would suck it up. And if it does look like he's going to get rotated, I might have to move from Luca Dean to Cash, or I might just suck it up and have to play someone else in those games. But I think I would just go for it. I think specifically this week against Everton, he could cause an upset against his old club. So I think I would take the risk with Luca Dean, but I don't mind Matty Cash, and his statistics are actually pretty good. So I think if you go for either of those, it's absolutely fine. A double up between Cash and Luca Dean could be incredible. So that's something to consider. Midfielders, I've got Ramsey on there. The Aston Villa Ramsey, that is, of course. The reason for that is just he's very, very cheap, and Aston Villa have great fixtures, and he could be a fantastic 5th midfielder if you want to go a little bit cheaper. I'm not currently planning on taking that much money out of my midfield, but if I were to, I really like Ramsey as an option. I've got Cornet on there. As soon as he's back from AFCON, and as soon as those Burnley games start getting rearranged, I'm definitely going to be considering him. I know a lot of you will as well. He might potentially be on penalties. There's nothing to confirm that, just a few Burnley fan opinions. And he's just their only attacking outlet. And with 5 games to be rearranged, plus all the games they've still got left as well, you would expect him to get a few attacking returns over the remainder of the season. So whenever they get their doubles, maybe triple game weeks, I'm going to be bringing in Cornet almost definitely. So he's definitely on my watch list. And then the 3 players from an attacking perspective that are currently highest on my watch list are Rafinha, as I've said for a while now, and I've been saying this for a few weeks. I like the fixtures coming up. Even though they're not fantastic, they're pretty good. I expect Leeds to continue to improve now that they've got players back from injury. Rafinha is still on penalties as far as we know, although when Bamford's back, I don't know if he'll start to take them back off of Rafinha. And Obviously, they have 2 fixtures to be rearranged as well. Specifically, the Villa one will be nice. They have Liverpool to be rearranged as well. So that's not a great fixture, but it is an extra fixture nonetheless. So I do like Rafinha. I think he's a good, as I've spoken about in the past, like a good glue guy. You can keep him for the remainder of the season. He'll start every game. He'll tick along nicely, and I do really like him. Coutinho, I think, will be a fairly explosive option over the coming weeks. Great fixtures, games to be rearranged as well. If they get a double, Coutinho's definitely a great option. If the double is just Villa and Burnley, i.e. Leeds don't get the double, Coutinho over Rafinha might be a nice option. If it's a Villa and a Leeds double, I think I'd prefer Rafinha to Coutinho, just because I know he'll start both the games. He's potentially on penalties as well, and I really like that Newcastle fixture to target. And then, as always, I've still got Salah on my watch list. The reason I do that is just to remind myself I'm going to need Salah back in very soon for captaincy. He's going to have like Leeds and Norwich in the next sort of 3 or 4 game weeks, I think. So Salah's going to need to come back in for captaincy, and it'll probably be, like I said, at the expense of Ronaldo. So those are the 3 midfielders at some point I'd quite like in my team. Rafinha and Salah in particular are 2 that I would very, very much like. And then forwards, it's really, really boring. It's basically Ollie Watkins when they get their doubles or for the nicer fixtures, and then one of Dennis and King if I need to downgrade. But I'm not really interested in the attackers that much. I'm much more interested in that midfield. I think where a lot of the money can be spent and where a lot of the transfers can be made to attack double game weeks is in those midfield spots. A Damari Gray when Everton get their weeks, Cornet, potentially, like I said, Rafinha, Coutinho. When Salah gets the double game week, he's going to be about 300% effective ownership. But these are the positions where I think you can spend the money. And I think 5 pretty good playing midfielders is going to be necessary over the coming weeks. Because I just think, like I said, that's where a lot of the potential upside is, in my personal opinion. So that's my current watch list. Let me know down below if there's any players on your watch list that I haven't got here. Realistically, what we're going to be doing over the coming weeks, we're going to be attacking the doubles, and we don't know a lot of the doubles yet. So if a random team gets a double game week in 24, then I will probably want to bring in a player from that week. So it's going to be largely being reactive, waiting for news regarding double game weeks and bringing in players probably from those weeks. Final thing I would say regarding transfers is don't overemphasize double game weeks though. If it's a good double game week and you want to bring them in, by all means. But if it's a double game week of Chelsea and Liverpool, yes, they've got 2 games, but realistically, what are you expecting? Even, for example, Brighton's double game week, and I did bring in a Brighton player, but when they've got Crystal Palace and Chelsea, are you expecting a great deal from the Chelsea game? If you're expecting a 2-pointer, what you're saying is you're bringing them in for Palace plus 2 points. And I think sometimes we get so excited by double game week and double game week players that we sometimes miss sight of some long-term players which only have single game weeks but have fantastic fixtures. For example, Foden doesn't have any double game weeks coming up, but great long-term fixtures. I would argue that he could get close to outscoring Coutinho regardless of double game week fixtures. So something to keep an eye on is not getting too carried away with the excitement and of double game weeks and potentially looking at single game week players as well. That's just my personal opinion. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to avoid double game week players. Equally, there is a lot of upside. They've got 2 games. They've got double the potential potentially to score points. So I do understand it, but just don't get too carried away, be my personal opinion. I'm going to take a look at a quick tinker now, what my team looks like for this week, next week, and also what my plan to bring Salah back in is, because I've had a bit more of a think about it, and I'm pretty sure I know what that will be now. So this won't be as long as my normal tinkering sessions, but I did just want to show you what my team looks like if I roll the transfer this week, going into game week 24, and then how I might get Salah back in, and then maybe 25 and 26 as well, sort of approaching that blank game week 30, because after that, we're going to have bench boost, triple captaincy, wildcard, 2 free hits as well. It's going to be absolutely crazy. So I'm really excited for the back end of the season, but I just wanted to show you over the next few weeks with free transfers, etc., what my team looks like. I know a lot of people have been saying that the main reason that they're not enjoying FPL at the moment is because they can't plan ahead. And I do agree to some extent that it is significantly less rewarding. And sometimes you can just be slapped in the face. You can have the perfect plan. It can have every week, you know what transfers you're going to make. And you can be slapped in the face with COVID postponements. But that is generally the case with FPL anyway. You can have a perfect transfer plan each week. And you could get then 3 injuries in 1 week. So yes, it's been significantly worse recently. But I don't think that means we should throw planning out the window and just be a completely reactive manager. Yes, you need to react. Yes, you need to not suffer from plan continuation bias, but I still think it's worth planning because you know what your team will look like for future weeks. You at least know which players you don't mind losing if you do need to sell them, etc. So this is the way my team currently looks for this week. As I said, currently planning to roll the free transfer. If I do roll the free transfer, this is the way the team will look for game week 24. So I've got a really tricky decision actually between Ramsdale against Wolves or De Gea against Burnley. I'd probably play De Gea against Burnley, but that would be a really tricky one. It's one that I'll probably get wrong, and I'll probably have a lot of bench points from the keeper that I don't select. Then Cucurella, of course, has got the blank that we've known for a while in 24. The reason I don't mind that is that I've got 2 perfectly good subs here. If I knew Dalot was starting against Burnley, which we might know by then I'll probably play Dalot against Burnley. But if not, I might just go for Dawson for that security of a start. And the Watford fixture really isn't that terrible. And then the rest of the attack and team look incredible. I've got Foden against Brentford, Bowen against Watford, Jota against Leeds, Gundogan against Brentford, Antonio against Watford, Ronaldo against Burnley, and Calvert-Lewin against Newcastle. And Gray against Newcastle on the bench, and Dalot against Burnley on the bench as well. To be honest, I'd probably want to play Damari Gray, but I just don't know who in front of. Potentially Gundogan. But what we're now going to discuss is if Salah's back for 24, and I should say the Game Week 24 deadline is February the 8th. The final for AFCON is February the 6th, and the third place playoff is February the 3rd, I believe. It's around those dates. So there's a chance that even if Salah makes it sort of to third place with Egypt, that he might be back in time for Game Week 24. If he obviously gets knocked out somewhere else in the knockout stages or in the group stage, I haven't actually been keeping up to date too much with AFCON, then I do think that there's a reasonable chance that he's back for 24. I almost hope he's not back for 24 because I'm pretty happy with the team for 24. And if he is back for Game Week 24, I would have to sell Ronaldo before Burnley if I want to get him back in. So that would be the tricky decision to make, would be, do I sell Ronaldo against Burnley and Gundogan against Brentford for Salah and then a cheaper striker? And that is a tricky decision. And I know how bad Ronaldo's been. I know how bad Manchester United have been. But I do prefer the Burnley fixture to the Leicester fixture. I do think the Leicester are starting to improve. They've got James Justin back now as well. That being said, I think defensively they are still quite vulnerable. And with Salah and Mane back, potentially maybe it will only be one of Salah or Mane. I do think that Liverpool will start to improve again from an attacking perspective, and they can overturn anyone. So let's go with the fact that I'm going to want Salah back in 24. It might end up being 25, but let's go with he's going to be back in 24. If I do that, then it would probably have to be Dennis or King. Let's go for King just for the penalties. King wouldn't play most weeks. This would just be allow me to afford to bring in Salah for Gundogan. Now, this would leave me with a lot of money in the bank, so I could potentially go for a slightly more expensive option than King. But let's just go for that for now. Bring in Salah, who's currently 12.7 million. So I've got 1.4 million in the bank. So I'd potentially have up to about 7.2 million for that King spot. I don't have a lot of strikers that I want at that price point. It could potentially be a Chris Wood or an Alan Saint-Maximin. I can't quite get up to Watkins with that price point there, and I would really want Watkins in. You can see King's fixtures. They've got West Ham, Brighton, Villa, United, Arsenal, Southampton. They're not terrible fixtures. Also, remember from my Game Week preview video, Watford have 3 fixtures to be rearranged, and they're pretty good fixtures as well, some of them. So I wouldn't mind bringing Josh King in for the probable penalties, the fact that he's got decent underlying statistics, and the fact that there are fixtures to be rearranged. And like I said, most weeks he'd probably be on my bench anyway. That would then allow me to play Damari Gray against Newcastle. So the team would look something like this. I'd then obviously captain Salah and I'd probably vice-captain Foden. What this does is a number of things. It allows me to get Salah back in for a captaincy option for Game Week 24 and beyond, because 25, 26, as we'll see in a second, you really need Salah as your captaincy option. It allows me to get Gray into my starting 11. It also frees up a Man City spot, because like I said, I do want a second Man City defender long term. So that would allow me now to potentially bring in Laporte for Dalot the week after, and then I would have Cancelo and Laporte and Foden as my City triple up. So I like this transfer plan and this line of thinking, in that if I can roll the transfer in 23, use my 2 free transfers in 24 to bring Salah back in, and then probably a Watford attacker to be on my bench, that will set me up really well moving forward. So if we then move forward to Game Week 25, of course, Ramsdale's got a blank there, so I would have to play Zaha against Southampton. The team looks really, really nice this week. I'd want Cucurella back in now because he's got Watford. And then again, I don't need to touch this team, assuming there are no doubles and assuming there's no COVID postponements. The team looks really, really nice. What I would probably want, although I'm not sure if this is necessarily the week to desperately do it, is I would want Laporte in for Dalot, and then I would have Laporte and Cancelo against Norwich and Foden. The issue is, if I bring in Laporte, who do I play? Who do I take out of my team, I should say, and put on the bench? I don't really want to take out Cucurella particularly, or Trent, or Cancelo, and I don't want to take out Bowen, Gray, Antonio, or Calvert-Lewin. So that is a really tricky one there as well. Still a really strong bench then of King, Dalot, and Dawson. So I guess what I'm saying is, still plan ahead, make sure your team looks good, because you can still plan your transfers in and around being reactive to double game weeks and COVID. And it's still good to know what your team might look like, so that you know which players you might want to take out or bring in. Salah, you're really going to want from 25, because I can't see any reason why he wouldn't be back for 25. And Burnley is a great captaincy option. He's going to be the top captaincy pick from 25 and beyond. So start to work out your Salah plan. If I say I don't bring in Laporte this week and I roll a transfer, I've got 1.4 million in the bank. It might be that I want to be reactive to a double game week. The team still looks fantastic every week. Every single week looks fine. I wouldn't take out Cancelo despite the fact that that's one of the trickier fixtures here. And the team, I don't need to change it week by week. It carries on going sort of long term. The only week that you might struggle, and this is something to bear in mind in the back of your mind, you might want to play a free hit here, is that in Game Week 27, Liverpool and Arsenal both blank. So I could get away with just taking out my triple Liverpool and then captaining, I don't know, maybe Foden. And then the issue is that you're going to be playing some suboptimal players here. So I've got Gray against City. I've got Calvert-Lewin against City. I've got the rest of the teams actually all right. King against United is not ideal. Antonio and Bowen against a pretty good Wolves defence isn't ideal. So for me, this would be a position you might consider playing your free hit. So what I would do if I was you at the moment, and you've got 2 free hits, I would plan up to about Game Week 27 and maybe consider playing your first free hit in 27. If you can maneuver it, perhaps you only have double Liverpool and you've got no Arsenal players and you've got a really strong bench with an 11 you're happy playing, and of course you can make transfers as well, then maybe you save that free hit. But regardless, I think playing it up to around Game Week 27 is the best of both worlds. You're still planning ahead a little bit. You're making sure your team's well set up for future weeks, but you're not getting too carried away because you do realise that this is a slightly more reactive season and that COVID can hit us at any point and that there are going to be a lot of doubles announced very close to deadline. So we need to be a little bit reactive. I still think you should be planning though. I think that's for the best. I still think that's the most enjoyable part of FPL and I'll continue to do it regardless of what happens this season. So that's the way the team looks like for this week. That's what the team looks like for future weeks as well. Just wanted to take a final quick look at the wildcard. I did talk about it in my Game Week preview, but I just thought I'd present it here in case you don't have time to also watch the Game Week preview video. So I'm going to talk about this a little bit quicker than I did in the Game Week preview video. If you haven't already watched that, go do so. This is my current wildcard draft. If I were to wildcard, I'm not planning on it, but I do think that now is a pretty good point. So I'm going to talk about this briefly here. I might also have a full wildcard Game Week 24 video next week. So if you're not wildcarding this week and you potentially want to wildcard next week, I should have a full video or at least discuss it in a lot of detail next week because we've got obviously a big gap in between the games between Game Week 23 and Game Week 24. So the key things that I would do if you were wildcarding this week is I'd have a City triple up of some kind, whether that be Cancelo, Laporte and Foden or Cancelo, De Bruyne and Foden. I would have a triple City. I would also have players with a lot of teams to be rearranged that also have pretty decent fixtures. So Villa have pretty good fixtures going forward. They also have 2 games to be rearranged. So I'd probably have Luca Dean and I'd have Watkins in there as well. Calvert-Lewin and Gray are 2 great options as well because, again, Everton have good fixtures and they have 3 fixtures to be rearranged. So I would definitely consider at least one Everton attacker. And then I would consider probably as your 4th or 5th defender, maybe a Burnley defender. I know they've not been good recently. They've got 5 fixtures to be rearranged. They're likely to have a double or triple at some point. You can keep them as your 3rd sub every week until you bring them in for their triple game week and then they might end up getting something in that week. Outside of that, the other key piece of advice, if you are wildcarding from me this week, as I discussed in the preview video, is I would have a 5-5-3 formation. Essentially what I mean by that is I would have all of your players, not only playing players, but players you're happy to play most weeks. So as you can see, apart from potentially Lowton, who I wouldn't really want to play most weeks, I'd be happy starting any of these. I'd be happy starting a back 4 of Cancelo, Trent, Dean, and Cucurella. I'd be happy to start in any of those 5 midfielders. In fact, I'd want to start those 5. And I'd be happy playing DCL, Watkins, and King most weeks. So I highly, strongly advise you to have a strong bench, not only because you might want a bench boost soon, and this is obviously your final wild card, but also just with postponements, with double game weeks, it's important to have lots of different options, lots of different price points, in my opinion. Also, I should say, final point is definitely have a route back to Salah, and that's what De Bruyne does here. I've got 1.5, 1.6 million in the bank. I've got De Bruyne in there, so I can take De Bruyne out, I can bring Salah in whenever I want to, and therefore I'm not going to waste loads of transfers after my wildcard to bring Salah back in. So that is the wildcard draft. If you want a slightly more in-depth discussion of that, go back to the Game Week preview video. I wouldn't copy this, make your own decisions, but this is generally in line with what I would do if I were wildcarding this week. So guys, there you have it. That is my Game Week 23 team selection. Little look at my transfer plans and watch this. Little bit of a live tinker, and then also just a little quick flash of my wildcard draft, which we discussed in the Game Week preview video. If you are enjoying the content here on this channel, please do remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Those 3 things are completely free for you to do. Help to support the channel grow so much. We are pushing towards 10,000 subscribers. We're around 500 off. So if you haven't yet subscribed and you've enjoyed the video today, please do subscribe. Tell your friends and family about my channel. It would help massively, and I can't wait to hit this milestone together. I am currently planning to live stream tomorrow around 4 p.m, maybe a little bit later on Friday before the deadline. I won't stream right up until the deadline. I'll stream until about probably 4:30 at 6 p.m, and then I'll let you go and go to some other deadline streams right up until the deadline because I'll need to jump off and do some things. So do keep an eye out for that live stream. I'll try to schedule it later today. I'll keep an eye on my internet and hopefully that live stream will go ahead. Until next time, guys, thank you so much for watching. Cheers. Bye-bye.